Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going beyond those familiar rooftop solar panels. Think bigger picture, think future of energy.
Yeah, we're looking at concentrating solar power, or CSP. It's maybe less talked about than standard PV, but really important.
Definitely important, especially for large-scale power and,
Yep.
crucially, storing that energy, right?
Exactly. And understanding CSP, well, it tells you a lot about where the big money and innovation in clean energy are heading globally.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. Unpack the economic side of CSP. We're digging into an Outlook report from Cognitive Market Research.
That's right. We'll look at the financial forecasts, the global picture, and some maybe surprising regional trends.
Covering the period from 2021 right through to 2033.
Okay, so first things first, the global growth numbers are, well, pretty striking.
Let's hear them.
In 2021, the whole CSP market brought in about $4.66 billion in revenue.
Okay, 4.66 billion, a decent starting point.
More than decent.
More than decent.
But watch this. It's projected to hit over $6.2 billion by 2025. And then the really big jump forecast to top $11 billion by 2033.
Wow, $11 billion. So more than double the 2021 figure in what, 12 years?
Exactly. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAG, of 7.46%. That's a pretty robust growth year on year.
It really is. That kind of number tells you something significant is happening with CSP.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And it begs the question, where is this happening? Are there particular hotspots?
Right. Let's break it down regionally. Where should we start? Maybe North America?
Sounds good. North America is making a solid contribution. The report shows it growing from, let's see, $1.23 billion in 2021 to a projected $2.73 billion by 2033. That's a CAGR just under 7%, 6.98% to be exact.
And within North America, the U.S. must be the big player.
Oh, definitely. The U.S. started near $1 billion itself, $981 million in 2021, and it's expected to climb over $2.15 billion.
That's a CAGR of about 6.9%.
Yeah.
So steady, strong growth there.
Very steady. And Canada and Mexico aren't standing still either. Canada's looking at a 7.38% CAGR, Mexico around 7.15%.
So a continent-wide trend, really.
It seems so. Okay, let's hop across the pond to Europe.
What's the story there? Similar growth.
Quite similar in trajectory. Europe's market was just over $1 billion, $1.05 billion back in 2021.
And the projection?
Projected to hit almost $2.4 billion by 2033. The CAGR there is actually a little higher than North America's overall 7.28%.
Interesting. Any standouts in Europe?
Well, Germany is leading the pack in terms of growth rate. Their CAGR is pegged at over 7.7%.
Okay.
Going from about $178 million to over $431 million. Shows, these established economies are really pushing for renewables.
Makes sense. What about other big European economies? UK, France?
Yep, UK's got a solid 7.5% CAGR. France a bit lower at 6.6%. Italy and Russia are growing too, around 6% and 6.5% respectively.
And Spain? I thought they were big in solar.
They are, and they show consistent growth here too, about $72 million to $156 million, a CGR over 7%.
Okay, so broad growth across the continent.
Pretty broad. You also see Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, even Luxembourg contributing steadily, mostly in the 6-7% CGR range.
But you mentioned something surprising earlier.
Yes. The rest of Europe category, so countries not individually listed.
Right.
That segment actually has a really high CAGR, 8.36%. It's going from roughly $193 million to over $512 million.
Wow, that is high. Higher than Germany or the UK. What does that suggest?
It suggests maybe that CSP is really taking off in some smaller or perhaps Eastern European markets.
Yeah.
Maybe catching up or finding specific niches.
Fascinating. Okay, so North America and Europe showing strong, steady growth. Where next?
Now we get to the real powerhouse, Asia Pacific.
The growth engine, you said.
Absolutely. This region has the highest overall regional CAGR in the whole report. A massive 8.1%.
8.1%. Okay, what are the dollar figures?
It's projected to soar from $1.71 billion in 2021 to nearly $4.3 billion by 2033.
Huge jump. And I bet I know who's leading the charge.
You guessed it. China. Their performance is frankly incredible.
Lay it on us.
They started around $658 million in 2021. The projection for 2033, over $1.7 billion.
Good grief. What's the CAGR on that?
Get this, 8.65%. That is the highest UAGR for any major country listed anywhere in this report.
8.65%. That's massive investment and deployment.
Massive is the word. It really positions China as the dominant force in CSP globally. But India is right behind them in terms of growth rate.
India, too. Yeah.
India's market is set to grow from about $316 million to to over $846 million. Their CAGR is almost as high as China's, at nearly 8.6%.
So the two giants of Asia are really pushing CSP hard.
Extremely hard. And it's not just them. Japan's growing strongly, South Korea, Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, all showing TERs mostly between 6% and 7.6%.
A really dynamic region overall, then.
Incredibly dynamic. And remember that rest of category.
Like in Europe, let me guess, it's high here, too.
Even higher. The rest of APAC segment boasts the single highest CAGR in the entire dataset.
Seriously, what is it?
8.73%. It's smaller base, starting at $40 million, but projected to hit $122 million.
Remarkable. That points to CSP spreading really widely across Asia-Pacific, beyond just the big names.
Exactly. Rapidly developing nations seem to be adopting it quite aggressively.
Okay, amazing growth in APAC. What about South America?
South America is another strong growth story, an emerging market for CSP, you could say.
What are the numbers?
The region as a whole is expected to grow from around $275 million in 2021 to over $773 million by 2033. That's a CAGR of 7.65%.
Also very healthy growth. Who's the leader there?
Brazil. They're projected to go from about $96 million to nearly $277 million, with a TGR of 7.84%.
And other countries?
Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Chile, all showing solid TGRs, mostly in the 7–8% range as well.
So similar to North America and Europe, consistent growth across the board.
Pretty much. It suggests CSP is becoming a key part of the energy mix. They're tapping into their, abundant solar resources.
Right. Okay, that leaves the Middle East and Africa. Let's take the Middle East first.
Okay. The Middle East shows growth, definitely, but it's a bit more moderate compared to other regions.
Oh, so
It actually has the lowest regional CAGR in the report at 6.16%. Still growing, mind you, from $251 million to over $541 million by 2033.
6% is still growth, but yeah, noticeably lower than APAC's 8%. Any reason why?
Well, Saudi Arabia leads, growing from about $103 million to $223 million, at KGR just over 6%. Other players like Turkey, UAE, Egypt, Qatar are in a similar range, maybe 5.5% to 6.5%.
Perhaps because they already have such huge existing energy infrastructure based on fossil fuels, diversifying, but maybe at a slower pace.
That could certainly be part of it. Despite having incredible solar potential, the transition might just be phased differently there. The rest of Middle East segment is even lower, around 5.5% in CJGR.
Interesting dynamic. Okay, finally, Africa. What's the potential there looking like?
Africa shows good potential and solid growth. The market is projected to expand from around $140 million in 2021 to over $331 million by 2033.
And the growth rate?
The CAGR is about 6.6%, so respectable growth.
Who are the main players?
South Africa had the largest market in 2021, about $60 million, and is projected to reach $139 million, with a CAGR around 6.4%. Nigeria is also notable, growing with a slightly higher CGR of 6.8%.
So even though it's starting from a smaller base, that growth is pretty important for the continent, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. You think about energy access, grid development, sustainable power for growing economies. CSP could play a huge role there.
Okay, so we've toured the globe. Let's try and synthesize this. What's the big picture takeaway?
The big picture is undeniable growth. A global CSP market really hitting its stride, set to more than double in, well, just over a decade. That global CAGR of 7.46% is the headline.
And Asia-Pacific is clearly the main driver,
Right.
Especially China and India setting a blistering pace.
No question, they're the engine. But it's not just them. North America, Europe, South America, Africa, they're all contributing significantly. It's a worldwide expansion.
So this really matters, doesn't it, for anyone listening who's tracking energy trends or global economics or just, the future of how we power things?
It's fundamental. We're seeing a major technology scale up, becoming a serious part of the global energy transition puzzle. It's moving beyond just being a niche interest.
Definitely seems that way from these numbers. Okay, so based on all this data, all this projected growth, here's something to think about.
Go on.
Given these trajectories, what else could influence this? What kind of, say, new technological breakthroughs or maybe government policy shifts might accelerate this even faster, or maybe even shift things in unexpected directions over the next 10 years or so?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? What happens next? Food for thought. Okay, so when you think about solar power, probably the first thing that pops into your head is solar panels, right? On roofs.
Yeah, those PV panels turning sunlight straight into electricity. That's the common image.
Exactly. But what if there's another side to solar? Something, well, a bit different, that does more than just generate power.
Ah, you must be talking about concentrating solar power, or CSP.
That's the one. Today, we're doing a deep dive into CSP. We want to look at its maybe surprising uses, its strategic plus points, and also the challenges it's up against.
Sounds good. Yeah, CSP is fundamentally different. Instead of that direct conversion, CSP uses mirrors, lots of mirrors, actually,
Okay.
and they focus or concentrate sunlight onto one small spot. This makes things incredibly hot.
Right, intense heat.
Exactly. And that heat is what we use usually to make steam, drive a turbine, and generate electricity. So it's really about thermal energy first.
Let's unpack that a bit. You mentioned surprising uses. What kind of things can CSP do beyond just feeding the grid?
Well, it's pretty fascinating. One big area is desalination.
Making fresh water.
Precisely. In places that really struggle for water, like parts of the Middle East or Africa, CSP provides the heat needed to turn salty or brackish water into fresh water. It's a really vital application.
That sounds incredibly useful. Is it like theoretical or happening now?
Oh, it's happening. Take Perth in Australia, for example. A
Right.
huge chunk, nearly half of that city's fresh water actually comes from CSP-powered desalination.
Wow, nearly half. That's really significant. Okay, what else? I heard something about oil.
Yeah, that's another maybe less expected application, enhanced oil recovery, or EOR.
How does that work with solar?
Well, the heat from the CSP system is used to warm up oil left in older, mature fields. Makes it less viscous, easier to pump out.
Huh. So squeezing more out of existing wells.
Sort of, yeah. It boosts efficiency. And some projections suggest CSP use for EOR could be involved in maybe up to 20% of global oil production by 2030.
Okay, that's definitely surprising for a renewable tech. Is that controversial at all? Or just seen as making current processes more efficient?
It's mostly viewed as an efficiency gain, getting more from assets already there rather than expanding exploration. It really shows how flexible CSP can be for different industrial heat needs.
Got it. So moving beyond these specific uses, what makes CSP strategically important in the bigger shift to clean energy? What's its edge?
The big one, the real differentiator, is energy storage. This is critical.
How so? Different from regular solar panels.
Totally different. See, CSP plants, because they work with heat, can store that thermal energy. Often they use molten salt, which can hold heat for, say, 10, even up to 15 hours.
15 hours. So you can generate power long after the sun goes down.
Exactly. It provides dispatchable power, power on demand. That's something standard solar PV really struggles with on its own. You get electricity when the sun shines, but CSP with storage gives you power whenever you need it.
That sounds like a massive advantage for grid stability.
It is, and its efficiency is pretty good too, somewhere between 20% and 40%. That's getting close to or even better than PV sometimes, and approaching what you see with traditional coal or nuclear plants.
Okay, so reliable on-demand power. How does that fit with national energy goals?
Perfectly. Think about countries with ambitious targets. India, for instance, is aiming for 175 gigawatts of renewables, 100 gigawatts just from solar. Or Spain, targeting 74% renewable electricity by 2030. CSP, with its storage, is ideal for helping meet those goals reliably.
Makes sense. But it can't all be positive. What are the main obstacles, the challenges CSP faces?
Yeah, there are definitely hurdles. The biggest one right now is cost. Simple as that.
How expensive are we talking?
Well, these plants are very capital intensive. Building them costs a lot upfront. Something like 80% of the total lifetime expense is just the initial investment, especially the mirror field, the solar field part. For some designs, like parabolic troughs, that alone can be almost half the installation cost.
Okay, so what does that mean per unit of electricity compared to, say, solar panels?
Right. The comparison is key. The average cost for CST electricity is around 20 US cents per kilowatt hour. Solar PV, that's more like 5 to 10 cents. So quite a gap.
That's a significant difference. Are there other challenges besides the cost?
Sure. CSP plants tend to need quite a lot of land. They also often require water for cooling, which can be an issue in the very arid places where solar energy is abundant. And the materials for thermal storage, like molten salt, can be expensive too.
Okay, so high costs, land use,
Mhm.
water, quite a few things to tackle. Given all that, what's the overall outlook? Is there still optimism for CSP?
Oh, absolutely. The outlook is still quite positive. Costs are expected to come down. as more plants are built.
Economies of scale.
Exactly. Economies of scale, learning from experience, technical improvements, making construction faster and smoother, all that helps drive costs down.
And government support, does that play a role?
Definitely. Tax credits, grants, policies that favor dispatchable renewables, these are all helping to level the playing field and reduce that initial financial barrier.
So cost reduction plus policy support.
Right. And don't forget that unique value proposition we talked about, the ability to tackle both energy and water challenges simultaneously. That's a pretty powerful combination for sustainable development. It gives CSP a distinct niche.
That's a great point to end on. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What new possibilities open up for building sustainable infrastructure when we look at energy solutions that can also help solve critical problems like water scarcity?
Yeah.
Lots to consider there.